the astronauts, where they actually mentioned that today when they had that picture that you saw. They all stopped what they were doing to look out the window, and they almost like had to like pinch themselves, like, are we really doing this? And so it's really cool. The other thing that today I thought was really interesting was they were talking to a former astronaut who was on the space station for a long time, and they asked him what was the best part about being in space, and I thought this was a great answer. He said it was sleeping. And I'd never thought about this, Tim, but he said sleeping in weightlessness is like the most amazing feel, because he's like, there's no stress on any part of your body, muscle or bone. It's like if you've ever slept wrong on your shoulder or your arm, he's like, you don't have any of that because you're weightless. You just tether yourself down. He says it's the most restful sleep you'll ever have. And he joked that in future that there'll be space spas because people will just want to go to space so they can sleep in weightlessness. And I was like, that's a really good point. I never really thought about that. But he said it's the best sleep he ever had.
That sounds great. I mean, hey, as you get older, we all start to feel those joints in the when you wake up, it's like, wait, I didn't even do anything. I just slept wrong. That's never.
It's like, how did you get hurt? Oh, Brad, I slept on the wrong pillow.
Brad, what are the two things you think people need to know about this mission who haven't been following it as closely as you have over the next couple of days?
Well, I think the biggest thing is people are like, why is this a big deal? We're not even landing on the moon, right? Well, we're going to go on this opposite side of the moon by about 8,000 miles, Tim, and that is going to be the farthest any human has ever gone into space, even farther than any of the Apollo missions. So even though we're not landing this go-around, it's the farthest we've ever gone. The other thing is people forget. They think, oh, we landed before. Why is it taking so many missions? Remember, it took us to this would be the equivalent of Apollo 8. Right now. That was the first Apollo mission that actually went around the moon. They didn't land on the moon until Apollo 13. We're going to do that in Artemis 4. So think about that, how much quicker we're getting there. We still need to do these missions because you can't do it all at one time, but we are doing it faster than the Apollo missions. I think people forget how many Apollo missions there were before they even got to this point.
And what's the timeline? So we're going to be on the moon pass by on Monday. Is that right?
Yeah, sometime on Monday. And that's when you're going to get another great picture, Tim. It's going to be that Earthrise coming over the horizon of the moon, which is a view that very few humans have ever seen. And the last time we saw that picture, it was 1970s technology. We're going to have 2026 technology. So I'm waiting to see what that iPhone picture is going to look like.
Can't wait. Hard to believe it's been like 50 years since we've seen something like that.
Oh, unbelievable. So we're out of time. We'll obviously be talking a lot about this into next week. Have a great Easter weekend, everybody. We'll see you again coming up on Monday.
Welcome inside the Impact Studio, everyone. I'm Colin Mayfield, riding along here for the next 2 hours, and we're going to continue to update the Artemis II crew right now. NASA just did this a few hours ago about what they'll be doing not only today but into tomorrow. Let's listen in.
Good afternoon and welcome to NASA's Johnson Space Center for our Artemis mission status update. We are joined today by Lakeisha Hawkins, Deputy Director for NASA's Artemis program, Judd Freeling, Artemis II Flight Director, and Howard Hugh, Orion Program Manager. We'll be taking questions from here in the room and through our phone bridge, but before we kick that off, we will go ahead and start with opening remarks. Lakeisha, go ahead.
Thank you. And welcome to the third day of Artemis II. We appreciate the continued interest from around the world in the mission and in our crew. Since yesterday's translunar injection burn to send the crew around the moon, the mission continues to perform well overall, and the crew is in great spirits. Currently, the crew is more than 100,000 miles from the Earth and about 150,000 miles to go away from the moon. Victor said that we call amazing things that humans do moonshots for a reason. And indeed, this is literally and symbolically our moonshot that we're in the middle of. It's great to get some very clear video and images of the crew yesterday, and the crew configured their cameras aboard Integrity, and we have some of the latest images to share with you. If you could call up the first image. This first one we got to the ground shows the unique vantage point of the crew as they look back at the Earth. It shows a backlit Earth revealing auroras as the crew heads towards the moon. It was taken by Reed Wiseman out of an Orion window, and it features two auroras, top right and left and bottom left, and zodiacal light, which is at the bottom right. It's visible as the Earth eclipses to sun. It's great to think that, with the exception of our four friends, all of us are represented in this image. If you could call up the next image, please. This one shows Earth, as you can see, the Terminator line. And Reed also took this photo after translunar injection burn yesterday. What an amazing shot that he shared with us here. So we continue to learn all about our spacecraft as we operated in deep space with crew for the first time, and it's important to remind ourselves of that as we learn a little bit more day by day. So, Judd, if you could talk a little bit more about details.
All right, thanks, Lakeisha. Let's see, so when we last left yesterday, after the translunar injection, the crew did some press conferences with media. They did a detailed inspection of their windows. They also had planned medical conferences, and while they were sleeping, the ground did some looking at the crew module and service module, a survey to just see how the vehicle is doing from an external view. We also continued some OpComm passes, so the optical comm antenna that we have on board to downlink high-rate images. We were able to do that overnight. This morning when the crew woke up, they had their normal planning conferences, and then they were able to do their family conferences, so they were to talk to their family. And they also did another noise characterization of how loud the toilet was, so they performed that. We had planned today a trajectory correction burn for OTC-1 is what it's called, orbital trajectory correction. The systems are doing so well, navigation and propulsion systems together, that was not needed, so we'll roll that in to the next planned trajectory correction tomorrow. And I'll hand it over to Howard to talk any specifics on the Orion systems.
Thanks, Judd. Great to be here again. Let's see, our subsystems continue to perform very well. Everything is nominal and as expected, so really good to report that today to you. As Judd said, we did the translunar injection yesterday, and we get a chance to look at the data, and the propellant usage was within 5% of our predicted usage limits. So it was really good to see it go so well, and the performance for that 5 minutes, 50 seconds was outstanding. Let's see, across other subsystems, no issues relative to solar array and power generation. The air revitalization system is doing very well. We are scrubbing CO2 at very good, healthy levels. We're keeping the humidity in the right range, and the crew, obviously you've seen, looks like they're enjoying their time in the cabin. And across various other subsystems, like I said earlier, we're performing as expected or better in some cases. Now we are working through one issue with the SM prop in terms of pressurization. So we have helium that pressurizes the propellant tanks, basically pushes out the oxidizer and the fuel in order to make some of the major burns. And so we had to shut off, isolate one of the branches. We have redundant branches in the system, no emission impacts. This is why we build redundancy in the system. But we're evaluating that. We're looking at that. That's maybe something you heard on the loop relative to what we need to do to isolate this particular branch. The second branch is ready to go. And when I say no mission impacts, we're able to perform the rest of the burns across the mission without doing any regulation, what we call blowdown mode. In other words, there's enough helium pressure in the tanks itself that we can push out the oxidizer and the fuel without needing to regulate or require more helium from the helium tanks. So overall, our redundant capabilities are providing the coverage that we need as we move across the mission. Let's see. Yesterday also, I think somebody asked this question, but the crew was able to exercise, and I said yesterday, I think we talked a little about any performance implications on the guidance navigation control system, and talked to our experts, and there were no implications on that. So performed as expected in terms of what we thought the forces that would get imparted when the crew does the flywheel. That we addressed that very clearly through our design, and I'm happy to see that performance held up very well. Let's see, I have, I guess, my own couple images that Lakeisha showed you some, and I have a couple of my favorites. So the first one is just awesome to see from our spaceship. Out the window, our beautiful home planet, the Earth. I believe Reed took this picture, and it just brings a lot of great emotion to me, and to see that picture being taken. I know there's a lot of other pictures that we're going to see that are just going to be outstanding and fantastic to be able to enjoy. And then the second one, I had not seen the crew in a while. I've obviously heard them, but to see them in the interview, I do believe that I think Jeremy is too comfortable that way. I'm not sure he's working that hard, so I'm going to have to check to see if he's doing anything more than just laying there on the side here. But great to see the crew, great to see their smiling faces, and hear them talk about their experience already so far. And I can't wait to talk to them when they land home back Earth. And I think that's it for me today.
All right, thank you. We will go ahead and start our Q&A session. If you're in the room, please raise your hand if you have any questions, and if you're on our phone bridge, please press *1. We'll start right here with Mark in the back.
Hey, hello everyone. Good to see you all again. Mark Strassman with CBS. John, I want to ask you a question, if it's okay. You know, there are millions of Americans, unlike people in this room, who are just catching up with the fact that there's a moonshot going on this week. Who knew? So I want to just sort of scoot ahead to Monday's milestone, the lunar flyby. Why does it matter? What do you hope to get out of it?
So it matters because, you know, the whole point is to go back to the moon. The whole point of this mission is a campaign to get back to the moon. And the being able to see with human eyes the lunar surface is a huge milestone, right? And that just articulates the point, that we're going back to the moon, we're going to stay there, right? And so this is the first step towards that. We'll obviously build upon that. We'll get eyes on the moon, kind of map it out, and then continue to go back and in force.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll go next. I think for us, I'll just touch or follow on what Judd said, which is the building blocks. We're building a transportation system. And to have a reliable and robust transportation system, you need to test flight the transportation system. And I think that's really important. We've demonstrated on Artemis I with uncrewed capability. We've added a very important aspect of it, which is the crewed capability, and that crewed capability enables us to really understand how, when we have people in the cabin, how the systems operate and adjustments we need to make. You hear a lot of these kinds of things that over the loop, minor adjustments we need to do. Certainly engineering expertise and the design we put in has a certain understanding, but until you put people in the mix and you operate it and really understand what you need to do to operate in this kind of environment, you don't get that until you're in that environment. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, part of what we're doing is the technical aspects and what we are learning from taking ourselves around the moon. The other part, obviously, is what you talked about, which is capturing the imagination of people, right? And we have far more engagement than we had hoped to have, and we hope that it will increase as we continue to take further and further steps into this mission.
Okay, we'll take our next question here in the front, and then Eric next.
Hi, Mark Kirkman with NSF. This is probably for both Judd and Howard. I'm very fascinated, we just saw some imagery of the waste dump, and I'm very fascinated with the prediction of needing the correction burns versus what's going to be the reality. I was wondering, because there's so little available material on the subsystems, at least publicly available material, can you summarize the things other than the waste dump that would affect or perturb the trajectory? What vents off of this vehicle as opposed to what we know from shuttle like Fest dumps and stuff like that? And were you surprised that you didn't need this burn? Are tighter in the prediction than is the reality tighter than the prediction was so far?
Yeah, so two parts to that question. First, so the major contributor to dispersions is what we call them, basically unplanned little tiny jets, are the carbon dioxide scrubbers. So they vent overboard, right? Vent the CO2 overboard, and so that's it's supposed to be a non-propulsive vent, but it has some propulsion to it, just like the urine vent has a little bit of propulsion to it. And so that causes minor trajectory deviations. Were we surprised that the orbiter correction or the trajectory correction was a no-burn? No, not at all. I mean, it's well within bounds. What happens really is we have a threshold by which if the required correction is low enough, that means that our fidelity on our lowest thrusting jets, our reaction control system, it's just not worth it, right? And so we'll just build up more errors and fix it on the next trajectory correction burn.
I think it's really good to see that we don't need these minor correction burns. It shows that our navigation performance and our ability to get ranging has been outstanding, and that these venting things, whether it's wastewater or the life support CO2 venting, doesn't cause the disturbances that are greater than what we would expect in terms of our performance. And I believe, I think we might have skipped maybe two. I know we skipped one correction burn on Artemis I already, and so it's not unexpected, and so the flight control team gets an opportunity to determine when the delta V is very small, whether we actually need to execute that burn or not.
Okay, Eric, go ahead.
Eric Berger, Ars Technica. Yesterday, Howard, you made a comment about you wanted a little more humidity in the capsule, I think during the briefing, which as a Houston resident is always kind of funny to hear. But just now you mentioned that the humidity level was up and good. And maybe you could just talk about sort of the comfort in the cabin. I think there have been some questions about temperature. So kind of what temperature swings and what's the ambient temperature and sort of crew cabin comfort level?
Yeah, I'll let Judd start with the crew cabin temperature, and I can follow up. Why don't we try that?
Yeah, so we had a cabin temperature that was in the mid 70s when we first got on orbit, and then we turned off some of the shell heaters. And the temperature dropped around about 65 degrees or so, and then we understood that the crew was not comfortable at 65 degrees, so we turned some of those shell heaters on. We lowered some cabin fan speeds to try to adjust that, and we've gotten it up into the low 70s, mid 70s right now. And as far as humidity, I think Howard mentioned this yesterday, but the carbon dioxide scrubbers really actually want some a good amount of humidity so that they work effectively.
Yeah, so I'll answer, we've got a lot of different kind of knobs to turn to enable the comfort level or temperature changes. For example, the pressure vessel heaters that Judd's talking about, we can go up to 85 degrees. We're not anywhere close to that yet. So that's one knob, and we have other things where we could slow down the coolant loop speed as well in terms of how we trade the heat or the coolant that's necessary to go in the cabin as well. So a lot of different options are available, and overall, keeping a steady state relative to humidity in the cabin allows us to make sure we get good readings also from the CO2 and the CO2 scrubbing associated with that humidity.
I do want to remind us, though, that this is a part of what we want to do. We want an opportunity to be able to exercise these knobs that Howard is referring to so that we have a good characterization of the system going forward. We understand the capability of the spacecraft and its systems. This is what we want.
Yep.
Okay, we'll take our next question right here.
Thank you, Mark Carreau with Aviation Week in Space Technology. I wanted to refer back to the external survey you did with solar array cameras of the Orion and the service module, just to see if you saw anything initially of concern that would have been damage to the exteriors, or it looks good.
Yeah, I have not personally seen the photos from our survey. I did watch it a little bit on TV as well, but I have not heard anything that we're concerned about, Mark. I think we will continue to go to fine detail and look at the pictures. Our thermal protection system team is doing that right now, and they'll give me a report out tomorrow morning and show me anything that they found relative to any damage, but we don't see anything relative to the back shell panels or anything like that would cause anything of concern.
All right, folks, going to take a 2-minute break. We'll come back and join NASA once again after this 2 minutes. Hey, folks, we are back. I'm going to go back to NASA's press conference, updating us on the Artemis II crew now.
Jackie, go ahead.
Hi, Jackie Waddles, CNN. Thanks for doing this. Quick question for Judd or Howard. I understand that during the latest communication with crew, they were talking about mopping up some kind of leak with towels. I'm not sure I understood exactly what was going on. I'd love some insight there. And then tomorrow, there's a couple of things on the schedule I'd love to hear more about with this manual piloting, test flight test objective, and a selfie moment. I'd love some insight into what's going on there. Thanks so much.
Sure. So mopping up water. So it's not uncommon for whenever they're filling dream bags for a little bit of water to come out. The particular incident I think that the crew was talking about likely was as we were filling the contingency water bags. Whenever we had to fill them, there's a straw and a syringe, and you put a towel around it to make sure water didn't come out. There's also a feature of the potable water dispenser such that when you turn the valve off, it still dribbles out water for a little bit. So those are probably the couple of things that they're talking about. As far as tomorrow's objectives, manual piloting, so we're going to do two different modes. It's called 6DOF and 3DOF, 6 degrees of freedom and 3 degrees of freedom. It's different thruster modes of how much control that you have in all the axes and translation. So we're just going to it's another test objective of how the vehicle handles. And selfie, I think that's probably a selfie of the Orion vehicle with the cameras.
Yeah, very similar to what we did on Artemis I, where we had, I think, the biggest selfie stick in the world and allowed us to take all those beautiful pictures. We were originally intended to have those solar array cameras do the survey that Mark was referring to that we did today. But because we were performing so well that we were able to use one of the arrays as a selfie stick, and so that was terrific.
All right, we'll head to the phone bridge for a few questions. Our first question there is from Joseph Howlett with Scientific American.
Hi, Joseph Howlett here, Scientific American. I'm curious about how the crew is faring on board, how their spirits are. I was surprised that they only got to talk to their family now, and how did those conferences go?
Yeah, so we'll say a little bit about that. They are in great spirits, and they are really excited about the opportunity to be there and what's going on. Obviously, they've been very, very busy the first couple of days, especially leading up to translunar injection. But now that we've gotten through that, that's why there's been an opportunity for them to do things like have a conversation with their families. And in terms of the great things that are going on, they did get awakened this morning with a song called In a Daydream by the Freddie Jones Band. So there's a lot of fun things going on in addition to a lot of hard work.
Okay, our next question on the phone bridge is from Micah Maidenberg with the Wall Street Journal.
Hey, I just had a couple of quick ones for Judd. Judd, I wanted to make sure I understood this lunar science observation period. So during that 6-hour period, that's when Orion's traveling around the far side of the moon for the entire stretch of that? Or not? And do you know approximately when on Monday that 6-hour period begins, like in Eastern or Central Time? Thanks so much.
Yes, I can get that for you. As far as what we're doing, it's essentially when we start our closest approach to the moon. It's pretty much the entirety of that day we'll be able to see the moon, and so what we're doing is we're doing visual observations, taking camera shots of the moon and the like. As far as when we start it, it's going to be UTC of around 1830 UTC on the 6th. So subtract 5, that's 1330 Central Time, and it'll be going on for most all of that day, right? Because they'll be at their closest approach and pretty close thereabouts during that entire time.
Okay, we'll take one more question on the phone bridge and then back here in the room. Our next question is from Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking this. Probably for you, Judd. NOAA just issued a geomagnetic storm watch, G2, coronal mass ejection. I know you guys are watching this throughout the mission, but will this one, it doesn't seem to be too bad, but will the crew be doing any precautionary measures because of this? And same question from yesterday. What's the latest revised numbers for closest approach to the moon, all the numbers and distances? Thank you.
All right. Yes. So we do have our radiation specialists that monitor all of that stuff, and if any of the sunspot coronal mass ejections happen from the sun, if they get to be a concern, then obviously we have mitigations, radiation shelters we put up. We do not expect that from this one, but we are continually monitoring that. As far as the updated numbers, I've got in statute miles. Should be 252,757 statute miles at our furthest distance from the Earth.
You're not going to convert that to nautical miles?
I think Howard's got an app for that.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take our next question right here. Go ahead.
Hi, Lauren Grutch from Bloomberg. Thanks so much. I just wanted to go back to that helium issue you were talking about earlier. You said you isolated that one branch. Just wondering if there's any concern if the second branch that you're relying on now has a similar issue, or is that redundancy you mentioned earlier, would that kick in for this problem? And then I've just been listening to the loops, and it sounds like there have been various, I guess, sensor issues or issues that are cropping up that don't seem to be an issue, like there was a suspected cabin leak, caution alarms that were coming on but then turned out to be false alarms. I'm just curious if you're sensing any pattern with that, or is that just random glitches for a test flight like this?
Yeah, I'll start. The other second branch on the oxidizer side is performing very well. No issues there. And so, again, that redundancy is there. And I said earlier, we do not need to regulate either on that line either for the rest of the burns. So I think both redundancy paths are in good shape. I would say, and I'll let Judd maybe talk some specifics. In general, Lakeisha said earlier, we're learning from this vehicle, and the caution and warnings are based on, limits, and those limits are established jointly with the engineering team and the flight operations team. However, we have to operate in the environment. We have to, account for variations, and so I think sometimes we don't get it fully right. And when we don't, we correct it, and we'll make adjustments real time where we can. And if we need to, we'll make adjustments for the future as well once we get all the data. So I think all those things are part of the learning that we're doing, and certainly good to keep the team on their toes and making sure that we're not only watching the systems very carefully, but we understand what the system is telling us, and we're adjusting based on what we understand from the data.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. So it's important to remember on Artemis I, we didn't have a caution and warning system because we didn't have a crew on board that we needed to alert them about, right? And so while we did measure, all of the things we did, we obviously didn't have an ECLIS system on board either, so that we knew what the behavior of that was going to be. So this is all part of exactly what Lakeisha is talking about. This is learning. This is learning how the vehicle operates with the human system in the loop, right?
Okay, we'll go to Bill next.
Hi, Bill Harwood with CBS News. This is a question I get asked a lot, and I realize that it depends on who you ask how it gets answered. But, given all the Apollo missions, the satellites that we've had around the moon at much lower altitudes than these guys are going to be at, the question I get is, what do human eyes really bring to this? Even if they've got nice cameras in their hands, they're a long way from the surface. 4,000 miles. What is this bringing that we don't already have from satellites and past missions? And I'm not saying that as a devil's advocate. I'm curious how you frame that in terms of the priorities of the mission. Thanks.
You want me to first? I can start, yeah. So my understanding, talking with the scientists, is that your eyes, the human eyes, can resolve details much better than taking a picture and then looking at the picture, even with a telephoto lens. And so that that observation that the scientists are looking for is really what's key. Even from as far as away as you mentioned, 4,000 miles, there are still things that the human eye can pick up with granularity that are important to the science community. Now, I can't talk about what those specific things that the science community is looking for, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, I think I'll try to maybe repeat what I said earlier. When I tell people this, and it's really purely from a spacecraft side, when we talk about wanting to have a moon base, wanting to have people on the surface of the moon or other planets, you need a way to transport people safely to that particular domain. And to me, it's very important that we do everything we can to understand and provide that capability in a robust and reliable way. And you have to walk before you can run. And I think this is very important in our step towards exploration, is learning, as we talked about earlier with all these questions relative to our subsystems, learning about how the subsystems operate in space. How do we put people in space, especially to the moon first? We haven't done that in over 53 years. This is a whole new generation of learning that we're trying to do. Certainly we learned a lot from our Apollo, I call giants, but we have our own learning to do, and we're trying to be more capable, and we're trying to provide more numerous opportunities to go to the moon so that we can put people down on the surface.
All right, we'll take our next question right here. Go ahead.
Hi, Michael Adkison, Houston Public Media. I know you guys are all too familiar with the Apollo 8 comparisons to this mission. They obviously did their Christmas Eve broadcast, and Sunday is Easter. We're in the midst of Passover, and Ramadan even was a couple of weeks ago. Are there any plans to do any sort of downlinks to mark the occasion or anything like that?
There will be an opportunity, obviously, to hear from the crew, and we will be having a conversation in terms of what they intend to share with us. They are always inspirational in their communication with us, and we're really looking forward to that.
Okay, we'll take our next question right here in the middle.
Hi, T.G. Mascaro with the Epoch Times. Thank you so much. My question, Howard, what specific things have exceeded your expectations in terms of the Orion spacecraft?
Well, that's interesting. I would say that, just how happy and how well trained the crew is and our teams are to just work through just minor issues that we've had. To me, it's not so much an exceedance of expectation. I expect that, but just to see it in play. Just to see how well that's working out. And of course, I expect our spacecraft to perform, but you never know. This is why we have a flight test, and it makes me very happy to see that although we have some minor issues to deal with, the team operates very well with the crew, both on the ground collectively between our mission evaluation room, our flight control team, and with the crew together, working together. And of course, the spacecraft is responding in a way that, of course, we knew about from Artemis I. Every spacecraft is different, but the process is the same, the rigorous testing that we do and the analysis we do. And so I would say that it's always good to beat expectations.
Richard Two of the Post newspaper. A question for Judd. Talking a little bit like a different aspect of this, so that with the MCC, can you talk about so many moving parts make this mission successful coming out of that department? What's the tone and the consensus of the controllers, the directors, as they see this mission transpire, and what are they thinking as far as how things are going so far in the mission?
So my sense is that there's a lot of people that are very excited, right? And excited.
All right, guys, going to take another 2-minute break. We'll see you right after this. All right, folks, welcome back. We're going to go back to NASA as they update us on Artemis II.
Objective that we're going back to the moon, but also just from, there's a lot of time that people have invested in training for this mission, developing the mission, being able to work well with all of the teams together, and to see that come together, I think there's a lot of excitement there, and it shows.
Going off that question, just curious, the technology's changed so much in mission control from the Apollo days to Artemis. Is there anything that you all have learned during this mission? Have you made any changes in mission control? We see the astronauts are making changes on the fly. I'm just curious to know if any changes are being made in mission control as well.
Yeah, I think you hear it in all of the funnies we see with sensors, the way they behave, the way the systems behave. That means that we are all reacting to that, and we are developing on the fly different ways than we originally thought how we would operate the vehicle. And so that is always an iterative process, right? And I think you're seeing demonstration of that in real time, and that we're iterating on not only learning about the vehicle, but also how to iteratively operate the vehicle as well.
Okay, we'll take another question right here in the room.
Yeah, hi, Beverly Casillas for Space Scout. Thanks again for doing this. Two quick questions. The first one, so we heard that the optical communications demo is already being used to downlink some imagery from the spacecraft. It sounds like that happened overnight. Are there any plans to potentially do any transmission of live video during the mission? And is that something we would get to see, if so? And then a second question, because it sounds like Orion's maneuvering has been really precise during the mission so far, what are you hoping to learn during this mission about guidance and navigation and PNT in the lunar environment? And is there anything that you're kind of already learning about that process? Thanks.
So I'll take the first part. For optical comm, the way the trajectory is set up, unfortunately, the only passes that we have with Goldstone are when the crew is asleep. And so anything that we have downlinked would be just video that you're already kind of seeing, higher resolution of the spacecraft looking back at either the moon or the Earth, and so for that purposes, we're really going to just use it for high res video downlink. And then your second question.
I think I'll take the.
Yeah, why don't you take that? Yeah.
Can you repeat your second question? I think you said something. Perked my ears. Guidance, navigation, control. So. Yeah. Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, I was just saying, because we've seen how precise the kind of trajectory planning has already been with, not needing to do this correction burn. Have you been having any learnings already about navigation and PNT with the Orion spacecraft and ground systems during this mission? And is there anything at the moon that you're also hoping to kind of learn and experience on that front?
So, we're using very traditional navigation instruments, so star trackers, the inertial measuring units I talked about yesterday. I think those are, we expect them to be precise. They're tried and true navigation instruments or sensors that are on a lot of spacecraft across the board. I think one of the things that we may have not talked about a lot is we have a capability on Orion to navigate without ground comm. And that's the optical comm system, and optical navigation system, and that's a camera-based system that gives you a really good enough navigation knowledge to be able to return the crew home and perform the mission. And so that's something that's a new capability that we're very interested in. I know the navigation team is certainly very interested. We did do some testing on Artemis I, and we learned a lot from that. We'll learn a lot from this because it basically takes pictures and translate that size of the moon or the Earth, depending on which way you're pointed, and gives you navigation knowledge from that. So again, that's a tool that we expect. And of course, as an old controls guy, control systems, ability to have good latency or no latency potentially, and ability to fire the jets when you need them, a combination jets you need them based on your offset center of gravity and where you are in terms of your mass properties are really a great knowledge across the board of understanding. We put a lot of effort into protecting for a lot of dispersions, as Judd's talked about previously. And of course, when we encounter those dispersions, systems, being able to control our spacecraft through them is really important as well. So all that we'll be learning. We will learn a lot, even though we have very good instruments, even though we know we have good control laws, we've implemented algorithms. Every mission is a great learning event, and it's really great to see that the precision of the work we put in is being replicated on orbit.
And I would add to that, in addition, as good as the sensors are on Orion, we still have to do ranging of the vehicle to update its state knowledge every once in a while. And so, as a lessons learned from Artemis I, we have a new suite of tools on the ground that are able to process that ranging data, and also to hopefully, what we're hoping to learn is to back out all of those, minor dispersions from, non-propulsive vents that are a little bit propulsive, so that we understand that can characterize all of the error sources of the navigation state.
Okay, we'll take another question here in the room, and then we'll go back to our phone bridge. Go ahead.
Thank you. Tarek Malik with Space.com. I think for Judd, there was discussion yesterday about how Flight Day 3 was a big change of pace for the crew after the first kind of action-packed couple days. And I'm really curious how, I know they had CPR demos today, they had lunar science preps today, how that change has gone. And then I know that tomorrow they've got some scheduled time, at least 20 minutes, to take photos of celestial bodies. And I'm just curious, if it's not the Earth and the Moon, what else might they be taking pictures of out the window in their personal time there? Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably saw in some of the videos, the crew has a lot more time on their hands than they did in the first days. We were able to present them to you and have them talk to the media. As far as the pace, yeah, I think you can probably tell from the downlinks that the pace is quite different than it was the first couple of days. As far as celestial, I mean, they're taking pictures of stars and moon and sun, right? So anything they can see that is of interest.
Okay, we'll head back over to our phone bridge. Our next question is from David Denault with About Space Today News. Go ahead.
I need to do a follow-up regarding the cabin temperatures. Has NASA determined a desired temperature and a desired humidity, and is there any relationship to that with the carbon dioxide?
As far as the desired cabin temperature, that is up to crew discretion, right? And so we're simply going off of what feels best to them as a consensus for the 4 members of the crew members. And humidity, we have to have some amount of humidity. I think we mentioned earlier for the carbon dioxide, we don't want it to be Arizona dry, I think is the term to use. We certainly want, but we, obviously the crew doesn't want it to be Houston humid either, right? So,
yeah, that's about right. Yeah. About 70s and about 25%, somewhere around there.
Yep.
Yep, they're comfortable.
Okay, we'll take another question from our phone bridge. Our next one is from Allison McGraw. Go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Allison McGraw, Mysterious Meteorites. Congratulations on the continued success from a giant leap for planetary science. My question is, given the crew's training with the CLO, or Crew Lunar Operations, what geology or image targets are first to be taken of during the lunar flyby? Thank you.
I think we heard your conversation about images supporting geology. Yeah, so the crew is definitely going to be preparing themselves during the lunar flyby and during the time that they are going around the moon to take images. They are actually working now with the science team that has gotten underway, and they are doing preparations and working together to figure out what will be of interest and what they expect to see on Flight Day 6. And so that coordination continues as guided by our science team.
Okay, we'll go ahead and come back here to the room. If I can get a show of hands, how many more questions we have? Okay, we'll jump right over here. We'll take a few on this side, and then we'll come back over to this side.
Hello, Dan Linehan from the Naval Postgraduate School. You've talked about this mission being a flight test program and an envelope expansion. And with the importance of the International Space Station, can you maybe talk about how the systems in Orion were originally kind of tested out prior to this mission in order to kind of succeed?
Yeah, I'll start with the Universal Waste Management System, or the toilet. The same toilet was flown on Space Station. I think the crews there were able to operate it for roughly about 2 weeks, if I remember. And so that was a really good, important test in a relevant environment against our toilet that we would be able to fly to the moon with. So that's one piece. I don't think there's probably smaller equipment, like, for example, the CO2 removal system. The heart of it is these amine beads. They absorb CO2 and then we vent it out. The same technology is on the space station. Different way how they approach it, but very similar in terms of absorbing and desorbing of the CO2 that comes from us humans. And that was also a really good foundation to stand on, and our confidence associated with ability to remove CO2, although in a different manner on board our spaceship. So those are probably the big items that I would translate between what we've learned from Space Station and what we've applied for Orion.
Okay, we'll take our next question right here and then right behind you after.
Thank you. Jonathan Seri with Fox News. I'm interested in the medical equipment on board. How did the CPR demonstrations go? How did the other demonstrations go? And then if you could explain Avatar. I understand what it is, but I don't understand how the chips interact with the cell samples. If you could school me on that.
So they haven't done the CPR demo as of yet, or at least as I started the conference. So that's later on today. Avatar.
So we don't have a science representative here with us today, but as best I understand that Avatar is actually analog tissue samples from the crew members, and they have been brought on board, and there's going to be an expectation that they'll be evaluating those samples for how they react to the environment while they are on this mission, including reaction to exposure to radiation as well. And so when it gets back, we'll be very interested to understand what they learned, both from the crew themselves as well as their avatars.
And Jonathan, if you need anything else on that, we can get it to you after the press conference.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Robert Coppinger, the British Interplanetary Society's Spaceflight magazine. Do you have any information on the status of the CubeSats that were deployed?
Sure. All 4 CubeSats were successfully deployed on the planned timeline about 5 hours after launch. There has been positive communication with 2 of the CubeSat satellites, the one from Saudi Arabia as well as the one from Argentina. And then in terms of how they're faring, at this point, it would definitely be best to reach out to the payload owners in terms of how they're doing. But they absolutely were deployed as expected.
Okay, we'll take another question over here, and then we'll head back over to the right side of the room.
Hi, Katrina Miller from the New York Times. Any milestones we can expect for the rest of today? What are you 3 focused on for the latter half of day 3?
Sure. As was previously mentioned, we have the CPR demo. We'll have another press conference with the crew. They'll go look at do their med kit evaluations of what they have on board. Also, we have, as far as communications with the Deep Space Network, we're going to test out again the emergency comm mode in a more deliberate fashion. And I believe Jeremy has a press conference with so it's a CSA press conference, and then some more planned medical conferences.
Okay, we'll take our next question from Will. Go ahead.
Hi, Will Robinson Smith with Spaceflight Now. Thank you all for the time today. Question for Howard. It might be a little bit early to ask this, but from the performance you've been seeing in Orion so far on hardware and a software side, do you foresee any notable changes or updates to hardware or software for the Orion spacecraft that will fly Artemis II at this point, besides the heat shield, of course? And then the images that we've seen so far for whoever wants to take this, so far have come from Reed Wiseman. Don't know if that's just happenstance or, if the other crew members are getting good pictures, but will we see a variety of the photography skills in the days to come? How is that kind of being decided and divvied up at this point? Thanks.
All right, I'll take your first question. I think even walking into this meeting, I think, or this mission, and hearing from you here relative to just the software changes we're talking about are going to be caution warning for sure. The limits that we put on, we're going to learn a lot from this mission. So there's going to be, I call them software. You probably don't think of them as software, but really data values for limits. So those will be changing for sure. We have not seen any issues with our flight software, the actual code itself. Of course, we'll learn a lot more as we go forward the next few days. Hopefully, we'll find nothing. But we don't. We'll make some adjustments if we need to for Artemis III. Our software development is still a few months ahead of us in terms of completing it. We've got a lot of the software done already. Of course, we've got a lot of software from Artemis II. From a hardware perspective, there's a lot of learning. These, I would say, minor issues that we've encountered and these isolation valves, et cetera, we're going to go check those out and try to get the root cause. And if we have any things that impact our ability to fly at Artemis III, we will work that.
Hey, Howard, why don't you also touch on the different camera capabilities to include the mobile phone cameras, et cetera?
Yeah, so from an image perspective, before maybe Judd talks about who's going to take pictures, if you might or may not know that we have iPhones on board for the crew members, and they're able, not only the Nikon D5s and the Z9s that we have on board that we preloaded already, they were able to also take some iPhones as well. That's what Lakeisha's referring to. And so they'll get some great images from all those cameras. And I'll let Judd talk about who gets assigned the best pictures. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably just happenstance that you've seen, Reed's pictures. Every one of them are going to be taking pictures, and I'm sure once we get, are able to downlink all of the pictures, I think you will see a suite of pictures from all of the crew members.
Okay, it looks like we have one more in the room. Do we have? Okay, we'll go ahead and take one from you, and then we'll head back over here. Thanks.
Hello, Kaya Burgess from the Times of London. With the loss of signal as they go behind the moon, is there any plan in the future to try and overcome that for future missions, to try and use kind of satellites at Lagrange points or wherever it might be, so that in future that communication behind the moon will be possible and you will never be out of signal in the future? Obviously, it's been possible for Chinese missions that have landed landers on the far side. Is that something that you will be looking into?
So I'll just mention, as part of the administrator's Ignition initiative, he has talked about all kinds of different capabilities that we are going to try to add in a stepped approach to include capabilities on the surface on the moon, as well as communication capabilities. And relay capabilities will be absolutely a part of that for supporting us in the future.
Okay, we have another question right here. And do we have any additional questions after this one? All right, one last question in the room.
Thank you. Rod Powell at Astro Magazine. A similar question. How long do you expect the blackout to be during the flyby? And given that there's no burn back there, is there any reason to be chewing our pencils? And is there anything to learn from the timing when they come back out and you reacquire signal? Thank you.
So as to your second question, no, physics takes over, and physics will absolutely get us back to the front side of the moon. Let's see, I don't think I have the timing yet on this for how long we're going to be out of comm, but I can get you that.
Is it about 40 minutes?
Yeah, it's around.
Somewhere in that vicinity? Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is 40 minutes. All right, well, it looks like that's all the questions we have for today. Thank you so much for joining. We'll see all of you back here again tomorrow at 4:15 for our next mission status briefing. As always, you
All right, guys, we're going to take another 2-minute break. We have more from Civil Rights Attorney Ben Crump right after these messages. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to go to Civil Rights Attorney Benjamin Crump right now to learn more from him.
We have Deshaun Williams, the young man who we have seen in the video, and I think everybody, not just in Jacksonville, Attorney Daniels, but everybody across America, Pastor McKee, Dr. Newman, they have seen this video of this young man, and don't take Ben Crump's word for it. Watch the video for yourself. I mean, he doesn't resist. He complies. And that what they say to the hill, just comply. Well, he complies. Mr. Milker, he complies. And yet, they have him on the ground face down, and they kick him repeatedly while he's face down. Not a threat to anyone. And then they punch him at least 6 to 7 times, kick him at least 3 times, breaks his jaw, causes him to vomit, causes him to have a puddle of blood under his face. And this is a person who is complying. The police cannot be the ones who break the law if they want to be the example of how to uphold the law. We don't need outlaws. What we need is law enforcement who respect the Constitution. So you're going to hear from his mother, but also Attorney Daniels and Alfonso McClendon, my investigator, was showing me another video that is equally disturbing. The video of Travis Brinkley that has been released to some of you today. And you see the exact same pattern and practice of brutality at the hands of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office deputies. I mean, you have Mr. Brinkley, who is unarmed and complying, and the officer just unloads on him, punch after punch after punch after punch after punch, while he is face down, knocks his tooth out of his mouth. I could see if there was evidence on the video where somebody's life was in danger, where there was a threat. But the son Williams was unarmed, Travis Brinkley was unarmed, and you all know William McNeil was unarmed, a college student who they busted his window. And so we have exhibit A, B, and C. Jacksonville, how many more exhibits do you have to see before you say, we will not allow the sheriff's office to engage in excessive force? We will not allow the sheriff's office to violate the Constitution against our citizens. We will not allow the sheriff's department to have a pattern and practice of excessive brutality against black citizens. How long, Jacksonville? How many more exhibits, Jacksonville? I know that you see the videos. Don't turn away. Ask for accountability. In fact, demand accountability. You have that right to say that we expect our law enforcement community to be able to build trust with the community. It starts with transparency, but you must have accountability, and that is the only way you get to trust. And again, you don't have to say no more. Just everybody watch the video. Just watch the video. Watch the video. Don't take our word for it. They try to say that Attorney Daniels, Attorney Robinson, and I are exaggerating. Watch the video. And imagine if that was your child, if that was your loved one, if that was you. But by the grace of God, it could be so many citizens in Jacksonville. You say, oh, well, it's not my family. Well, Senator Hill, I tell them, keep walking and driving and breathing in Jacksonville. It could be you up here with Attorney Crump and Attorney Daniels. And before it comes to your doorstep, let's do something about it. Let's be a beloved community where we can say, no more JSO, no more video JSO, no more brutality JSO, no more racial profiling JSO, no more cops killing people unjustly JSO, no more JSO, no more, no more. At this time, he's been fighting these battles a lot by himself, but I'm honored to stand with my good Omega brother who, as I said, has been a tireless civil rights champion, especially here in Jacksonville, saying that we can't look away. We have to do something about this. We have to file lawsuits. We have to take depositions. We have to get discovery, because like the great Ida B. Wells said, we have to document the atrocities and the abuse. And as Ida B. Wells said, I mean, this is our legacy, to live up to the courage of Ida B. Wells, the great journalist, who said the killers write the police reports. They can't be the only one write the reports. We too have to document it. We have to tell what we saw. And thank God for technology, because we see it. And when Attorney Daniels sees it, he doesn't look away. So I give you my co-counsel, my brother, Attorney Harry Daniels.
Thank you, Attorney Crump. You know, they say once is a happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is an enemy action. Me and Attorney Crump, we go all over the United States of America, and we deal with these type of cases, law enforcement misconduct and other type of cases, civil rights violations. And I can unequivocally say, from the Pacific to the Atlantic, from the Mississippi Delta to the Great Lakes of Michigan, Jacksonville is the worst sheriff office when it comes to use of force against the citizens in Duval County, unequivocally. The reason why is because they have policies that allow their officers to engage in these actions. It's not just these officers that's doing these, that's rogue officers. They have policies they've got in play where they're allowed to have distractionary strikes. Have policy where they don't allow, the officers don't have to report the use of force on when they use of force against individuals, so long as a person don't claim that they're injured or taken to the hospital. This is a pattern and practice that have gone on for a long time here in Jacksonville, Florida. When you see these videos with Mr. Williams, Deshaun, it's indefensible, it's unjustifiable, but we probably have the state's attorney give a brief and try to justify it. We have law enforcement officers here on this platform. I worked in law enforcement myself. One thing in the state of Florida, Georgia, Alabama, which is encompassed in the 11th Circuit of the United States of America, Circuit Court, you cannot tase a person for passive resistance. Meaning you cannot tase a person, you tell them put their hands up and they don't. You got to at least try to make them put their hands up. If they don't, then you can tase them. In Mr. Williams' position, he was not doing anything. They asked him to stop, he stopped and turned around, and not one taser being, two tasers, 100,000 volts going through his body. How can he move his body? How can he resist when you got 100,000 volts going through his body at one time? The taser policy manual tells you that you cannot, it's against policy to have more than one taser. He's tasing, being kicked in the head used as a soccer ball. We had a case in California where the officer got 4 years in a federal prison for doing the exact same thing that's happening in Jacksonville, Florida. We got other officers right up the road in Camden County have been convicted and sent to federal prisons for the same thing happened in Duval County. Sheriff Office, Jacksonville Sheriff Office, punched multiple times. The video speaks for itself. You don't have to believe Attorney Crump, myself, believe your own eyes. Believe your own eyes. We ask you to do that when you have an individual punch, knee, and kick, vomiting and blood on the street. It doesn't matter what he's accused of, because in these United States, you are innocent until proven guilty. But the way they beat him as though he was guilty of everything they charged him with. And even if you are found guilty, Dr. Newsom, they have the 6th Amendment against cruel and unused punishment. 8th Amendment against cruel and unused, thank you, Attorney Crump. You still can beat him. So we got Mr. Brinkley over here. Come on, Mr. Brinkley, come step beside me. Mr. Brinkley, we just released this video today. Same exact thing. A same exact pattern. Same exact practice. He's on his stomach, got his hands behind his back. And I want you to take note when y'all see this video of Mr. Brinkley. The officer who was there with Mr. Brinkley wasn't striking him. It was an officer who rolled on scene and began to punch Mr. Brinkley. My Lord. Wow. Listen very closely to the video, because you may hear something else on that video, what was said. Listen closer to it. And we all know William McNeil, his story, as Attorney Crump put it. And it's currently in litigation. He won't be asking any questions this time. But this is a pattern in practice. I talked to John Burris, Attorney Burris, who's the godfather of police litigation. Attorney Crump and I mentor, who handled the Rodney King matter. When he looked at this video of your son, he said, remind him of the beating of Rodney King. My Lord. Beating Rodney King. Only thing difference that it was not as long as Rodney King. My Lord. And this is a matter that needs urgency. This is something that, as the citizens of Duval, Jacksonville, you know, we can stand here. I've been in this position before. Dr. Newman can tell you, we stand in the same pulpit and at the same press conference. What is enough is enough. I can file every lawsuit. We can file every lawsuit. We can win millions and millions of dollars. Blood is still in the streets of Jacksonville. The way we stop the blood in the streets of Jacksonville, that y'all go to the polls. And listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat. I'm not going to change my position. it is time for a change in administration. You have to change the head of this organization in order for it to get better. With that being said, who we bring it up?
She's going to bear her heart, but she's a mother. And so she won't be like the lawyers who know exactly the things to say, but she's going to bear her heart. Because, we don't need to say no more. Just watch the video.
Watch the video. Watch the video.
Watch the video.
Listen.
You don't need to say no more. Watch the video. We don't need to say no more. Watch the video. We don't need to say no more. Watch the video. We don't need to say no more. Watch the video. No more, JSO. No more. Miss Deonka Gordon, the mother of Deshaun Williams, is going to advocate for her son because he is not able to advocate for himself today. God knows what they're doing to him. If you watch what they did to him on the video, you understand why she's concerned, why he's in the custody of JSO. So let's keep her in prayer and let's bring up Miss Deonka Gordon, the mother of Deshaun Williams. And then Attorney Daniels will come back and present another client.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I hate to come stand before y'all in this position because I don't wish this on no mother. Not a black mother, not a white mother of any race.
Yes, ma'am.
When brutality is used, unuseful, unnecessary force, in that matter, you are becoming the judge, the jury, and the executioner. You're not just the police officers that's supposed to perform the job of arresting the citizens. My son was beaten brutally for a crime that he shouldn't have been being beaten for. He should have just been arrested. Been arrested and taken down and stood before a judge and a jury to convict him of whatever crimes that he committed. It is not for JSO officers to take it upon themselves to pass down the law.
Kick them.
You can't kick nobody when they're down and they're not resisting. My son didn't utter a word, not one word, in disrespect and resistance to the violence that he received from JSO.
Yes, ma'am.
It was one officer in specific who kneed my son in his face, in his head, punched him in his face, in his head. My son vomited. He could have died at that scene, and neither officer gave a care. They did not care what they were doing to my son. It could have been anybody's son, not just mine. It could have been a mother, it could have been a father, it could have been a husband, it could have been anybody's family members that this injustice happened to. When we have a sheriff that advocates for the public to comply with his officers, to not resist with his officers, and to see the video of my son not saying not one word in resistance, not making no actions or no moves in resistance, to be met with that brutal force, where's the justice for him? Where's the justice for the other people who may not have the brave heart to come and stand before you guys to say anything about what happened to them? I'm speaking for everybody, those who have closed mouths and those who will open their mouths. I will not keep my mouth closed for y'all to keep beating people. When you took that job, you took an oath to do your job to the best of your abilities. You were not deemed to be a judge, or you were not deemed to be a jury. You're deemed to be a police officer to arrest when the crime is being committed, to set that person in front of a judge, to be judged in front of a judge and a jury. You cannot take the law into your own hands.
Amen.
When you put on that uniform, you put on that uniform to perform a job and do it to the best of your abilities.
Amen. Thank you very much, Ms. Gordon. And it was deep, Attorney Daniels, as you come back up. It's deep what she said. She said, you have a sheriff that encourages the public to comply with their officers. Well, when you look at the video of Deshaun Williams, he's complying. What more could he have done? He complied, but that wasn't enough.
Able to do anything else. Exactly.
Mr. Brinkley, he complied, right, Attorney Daniels? But apparently that's not enough. There is a policy and practice of police brutality in Jacksonville Sheriff's Office that must be confronted. Dr. Newman, if we don't confront evil, then we condone it. And we're not condoning any of these excessive, brutal, unconstitutional uses of force inflicted on our people. We confront it, and we confront it head high with our eyes wide open, because that is what the legacy of the fight for freedom has been for our people. No more, JSO, no more. Attorney Daniels?
These are captured on body cameras. For you to beat somebody with a body camera on, that tell you really don't care.
Yeah, that part.
I get in the Rodney King, the guy had the video camera hidden somewhere. The body camera is right there on your person, and you still beat him. That lets you know that it's a custom policy, that they don't care because they believe nothing's going to happen to them, and nothing is happening to them.
Nothing.
Because they get to investigate themselves. And when they go to the state's attorney's office, you have people in the state's attorney's office that married to the sheriff's office.
Exactly. Exactly. That's true. Exactly.
Another incident, Mr. Brinkley, he's going to come up and speak. That video is out. Y'all should be able to see that video where Mr. Brinkley was laying face down, as Attorney Crump mentioned. Officer gets out of the car and began to pummel Mr. Brinkley. This happened in 2024. Mr. Brinkley had this video for a while. He was waiting for the opportunity to present this video and show that he can trust somebody to take his case and move forward. So, Mr. Brinkley, thank you for your bravery. You want to come up and speak to the meeting?
Yeah, so when the situation occurred, I never expected that to happen. I was fully compliant with the situation. I didn't think I provoked them or did anything wrong that would cause of, what happened to happen, I was shocked, I didn't expect that from the police officers, being as so I'm a normal citizen and whatnot. I figured, things would go by the book. I didn't resist, I didn't curse, I wasn't combative or anything, I totally complied, and what happens to me should not happen to anybody else.
And what did they call you? Did you remember?
I don't want to say that word, but it's the N-word, but I'll let the public be the judge itself, but yeah, it was not right. It was totally wrong.
Yeah, and like we said, don't say no more, just watch the video, but also listen to the video in Mr. Brinkley's case. Listen what they say to him, how they describe him.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, they tell us when we're in the court of law, you don't know what's going through that person's mind. Well, Dr. Newman, if they saying certain things, you can make a fairly reasonable conclusion what's going through their mind when they identify a citizen with racial epithets. No more, Jesso. Let them listen to it.
Listen to the recording, listen to the video. We in the House of Lords Good Friday. We ain't gonna repeat what was said, but you can imagine what was said. But one thing, man, you have a African American sheriff where you have his subordinates treating his citizens of Duval County using racial epithets and slurs while they're beating them. If anybody's going to stop that, it's a person who's over the organization.
Yeah.
You would think so.
Yeah.
Blind eye.
You would think so.
We're going to have detectives, Kim Varner. Detective Varner is going to address you, and then we're going to take your questions if you have any. Detective Varner was a lawyer deputy for JSO for over 2 decades. So please share your insight from these videos, Detective Bonner.
Well, I want to start off by saying it's not a proud moment for me. I'm not happy to be here because I love my sheriff's office. But when they're doing wrong injustice everywhere, I mean, anywhere is injustice everywhere. So that's how I was raised. So I got to speak out against it. You know, I can't sit back and keep letting this happen. I got to say something against it. And what those officers did, there was no reason for the violence that was used in that video. It's like Bianca said, it's when you comply and the officers take take it in their own hands to be the judge, jury, and the executioner and all. That's just wrong, and that's why I got to speak out against it. I can't sit back and just let that happen. I got to speak out against that. So,
Thank you. You know, it's really deep. Where is it in the policy of JSO that you get to kick a person who's face down and restrained? That is a question for the media to ask the sheriff. Where's that policy? I mean, when you face down on the ground, restrained, and they kick you repeatedly in your face, you wouldn't do that to a dog, but they're doing it to the citizens and saying it's okay. No more, JSO. No more. If you have any questions, Attorney Daniels and I will try to address them.
Obviously, you've dealt with a lot of high-profile cases all over the country dealing with police brutality. When you guys call Jacksonville.
All right, folks, we're going to take another 2-minute break. We'll come back right after this. All right, folks, we are back. We're going to go back to Attorney Benjamin Crump right now.
You've ever seen. Oh, thank you so much. Can you speak a little bit more about that specifically?
Go through the whole history here.
Like how they compare to other departments over the country?
Well, so first and foremost, most of the departments across the country don't investigate themselves. That is when you don't have a true accountability and you have a cold case unit that's doing the investigation, it's very rare that they find, if you go through JSO Transparent portal, and you go through that portal and look at it and see how many cases they determined not to be unjustified or exonerated or things of that capacity. When you look at that, it's not a whole lot. It's not a whole lot. Some of these cases are clear. We're not talking, right here we're talking about excessive use of force. You gotta be mindful, Jacksonville has a lot of cases dealing with shooting deaths. Shooting death cases It's some of the cases that I can go through, but for the sake of time, I won't. When you have cases, I think there's one case of Mr. Biggs some years ago where he was shot in the back of the head running from the police. And you had 10 witnesses said that he was shot in the back of the head running from the police. And guess what? They justified because one officer said that Mr. Biggs turned around and looked at him. 10 versus 1. No indictment, no presentment to the grand jury, nothing. When you have that custom and you have that policies where nothing is happening, then that fosters this type of behavior. It's almost like you growing up and you never get in trouble, your mom never punished you for doing anything. You will keep doing it. And that's how it has developed into this. You know, when you compare other cities across the nation versus Jacksonville, to me personally, this is the worst one. Ben may have a different perspective.
I certainly think that when you look at the tantamount of evidence, not subjective, but objective evidence, not evidence that we're asking you to try to draw inferences from, but what you get to see with your own eyes. You look at William McNeil's video. You look at the video of Deshaun Williams. You look at the video of Travis Brinkley. You take those three, and we can offer just double that amount of videos that are just as appalling. That is what makes Jacksonville unique in their use of excessive unconstitutional force. It's not rivaled by other police departments in America, where you see over and over police officers brutalizing citizens and there is no accountability. There is nothing that happens to these officers, and that is the pattern in practice. Yes?
Looking at the police reports, it didn't seem to indicate that there was any foresight issues. Could you talk a little bit about what you like to see when it comes to police officers reporting what actually happened on the scene? Also, there was a video that they produced about this operation, which didn't include, obviously, this incident. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, and I'll speak first and let Attorney Daniels address your question. It's about transparency first. Transparency. Let everybody see. If you're proud of what conduct and actions your police are taking, then let everybody see it. You should be proud. You should be able to stand up and say it with your chest. This is our police department, and we are proud of their actions. And if you're not being transparent, then that means you're hiding something. And if you're trying to hide something, then there's a reason why you're trying to hide something. Because you know in your heart of hearts that it is a violation of the Constitution. The fact that they are trying to hide the ball tells you they know that it's not right. And so when you think about Deshaun Williams, I mean, the kicks in the face. There's no way you can stand up and say that is constitutional use of force. And so I think your question was about reports. It really goes back to what Ida B. Wells said 100 years ago. The killers and the abusers are writing the reports. They're writing the police reports. And thank God for the fourth estate of the Constitution, the media. You all have to keep showing it. What I said about Attorney Daniels and I, when we see it, we refuse to look away. We will confront these evil actions. Because if you don't confront evil, then you're condoning it. And we do not condone the kind of police brutality that is happening in Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. No God-fearing citizen should condone that. No person who calls themselves Mora Dr. Newman should condone what we see in those videos. In the name of Jesus, everybody should be confronting what we see in the videos. Attorney Daniels?
Thank you, Attorney Crump. That was an omission by intention, as they put that video out to show that that operation. not to, they excluded operation that they would have seen, we would have saw Mr. Sean Williams beaten, brutally beaten. The reports, their policies, and that's why we got a pattern practice lawsuit that's going on right there, the custom practice in the William Neal case, is that their policy, if a person don't report an injury, then they don't have to report it. They don't have to take it to the hospital. In this case, obviously, in Mr. Williams' case, you saw him bleeding, vomit on the ground. Did y'all see his face? Fractured jaw. How can you not do a use of force report in that? You got to do. How can you not do a use of force report? Those are things that are intentionally done, that's left out to deceive the citizens. Now, it may be some people look at this video and say, "Hey, he got what he deserved. I ain't talking to you. You don't believe in the Constitution, because the Constitution applies to all. Due process applies to all. Even though some people try to take due process away, it applies to all." But that's a very good question. That's a question that I think you should ask T.K. Waters, why they omitted the video, or why there's no use of force documentations there per his policy. That's a great question.
Do you also plan on releasing the body cam footage as well?
Oh, I released it already. It's already out. Yeah. The entire body camera's out for Mr. Brinkman's case, for Mr. Williams. It's out. It's out.
If you go to press@bencrump.com, we'll get you all the videos.
The sheriff has only said, this is under administrative review. He's talked before about transparency and spoken. Since this is a civil rights case, he said this is under administrative review.
We ain't got the
message there at all.
He got me Attorney Crump up here. So, y'all remember the William and Neal case when they talked about it? William and Neal didn't release the video at all. They didn't start to do the review then. Well, this is different. This is different. At the time, Mr. Williams was subjected to use of force, where his jaw was broken, bleeding, fractured, entered into the Duval County, Duval County Sheriff Office, Jacksonville Sheriff Office.
Yeah,
Going so injured, went to the hospital. His words, not mine. That would prompt for internal affairs review. This happened in 2000 what?
2005, November 7th.
November 7th, 2025. It is April. And they just now doing an internal review? Attorney Crump, you can.
Obviously, the question begs for the truth to be revealed. And I know it sounds like a chant, but really at this point, we don't need to say no more. Just everybody watch the video and say, "Sheriff, apply your policy to this video." That's it. Apply whatever policies that you put forth on paper. Not what you actually do, but apply what you put on paper. Apply it. When we're in law school, they teach us that there's de facto and there's de jure. De jure is theory, what they say they're going to do per policy in written policy. But de facto is what they actually do in reality. And we know, based on the number of cases, that what they put in writing is different from what they do. Any other questions? Last one.
I know in the past, JSO has defended their actions, saying that these people are dangerous. So how would you respond to that?
Well, look at the video. And look at the video. Just look at the video. Everybody is face down and still being kicked and punched and kneed. And I mean, like Ms. Williams said, whatever you accuse my son of, you don't have the right to be the judge, the jury, and executioner. The Fifth Amendment still applies. This concept called due process of the law. We are not a police state in America. We still have a constitution that must govern our conduct. And the fact that the Fifth Amendment seems to be obsolete in Jacksonville, Florida is the problem.
JSO say they're dangerous. You know who also was dangerous? Dylan Roof went into a church kind of like this and killed 9 people. And when they got him, they gave him a Whopper meal.
No injury.
Killed 9 black people in a church in South Carolina. They gave him a Whopper meal. You had 12 officers. That's called show of force. On the scene with 1 man who was compliant. There's nothing dangerous about that. It doesn't matter what he has been accused of or potentially being charged with. That doesn't negate the fact that at the time, you got to look at the force that's required to do your job, right, detective? And if that force is overboard, that's an excessive, unlawful use of force. Point blank, period. No question about it. Dylan Roof killed 9 people, get Burger King. So that begs the difference. What is the real animus behind here? Listen to his recording. You're going to find out. The real animus is that black men in Jacksonville get beat before they get an opportunity to go to court.
Exactly.
It is what it is. All right.
Thank you all. We will continue to update you again. If you need the video, you can reach out to press@bencrump.com and we will get it to you immediately. Dr. Newman?
Yeah, and I want to ask this question real quickly. I think it's important. Otherwise, you have first time ever said anything at a press conference. This is the 3rd or 4th one we've had. And
on video.
This year. Press conference we've had. Here's the issue I want to raise though. The framing oftentimes is to paint these as a broad brush. Because of accountability, that means you're anti-police. And the issue is not anti-police. The issue is holding those accountable who break the law or who impose on the rights of citizens. And I think the framing is important because people like to dismiss these press conferences that they're just anti-police. No, it's about accountability.
Thank you, Dr. Newman. And hopefully, as we continue to say, don't take our word for it. Just watch the video, because there are certain people, there's nothing we can say that would convince them. They just got to see it for themselves. And I pray if they are God-fearing citizens, if they're God-fearing and they believe what the Bible says about justice, then they won't condone this. They won't condone this. Thank you. We'll keep you informed. Deshaun Williams, Travis Brinkley, and of course, William McNeil. We won't let them sweep these acts of brutality under the rug. Thank you.
All right, guys, we're going to take another 2-minute break. We'll come back with more news here on WCNC Plus. Welcome back, guys. West Charlotte High School is joining the Levine and Young Center in next school year for a national program co-founded by two music moguls, Jimmy Iovine and rapper-producer Dr. Dre, that many folks obviously have heard of. He teaches students in design, technology, and business and communications with this hands-on program. Let's listen in and learn more.
West Charlotte High School will gain a new learning center next school year. That's pretty exciting stuff. Designed to turn students into entrepreneurs and tech-savvy professionals, backed by roughly $2 million in funding over 5 years. Now, the school will join you probably heard about this, the Iovine and Young Center in the 2026-27 school year, a national program co-founded by music mogul Jimmy Iovine and rapper-producer Dr. Dre, teaching kids, students, all types of things from design, technology, business, communications. A really hands-on program, really cool from what I read. We have West Charlotte High School's principal, Paula Cook, here in studio. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
We talked about this earlier. I was like, do the kids even know who Dr. Dre is?
They know. If they don't know anything else, they know about those beats.
I know that's right. I'm like, man. All right, let's talk about this. When did you guys find out that you were a part of this program? And the excitement level, give me a range, 1 to 10, when you found out about it.
So when we found out, it was definitely a 10. Definitely a 10. We were introduced to the opportunity just through an email from the program inviting us to apply. And so I got the email. As principals, we receive a lot of emails about, we've got this wonderful program. So a lot of them, we don't really know what it's about. But this one, for some reason, just caught my eye. We had just started a program in the school we got involved with the CMS Foundation, and they partnered. So we were able to become part of their cohort to where they were helping us with a program that we launched this year. It was called Bridges to Leadership, Lions Beyond the Den. So when I read the information about this program, I said, these seem like they might marry well. So I forwarded the information to one of my APs. She got on the phone with them, had like that initial meeting, and she was like, I think this might be for us. So we got together, we had a conversation with the director of the program, and so he told us like what we would have to do to apply. And so we, from the beginning, were like, we are the West Charlotte High School. We know we've got this. So we submitted our application. We invited him to Charlotte from LA, and he flew out, and we put the razzle-dazzle on him
put
at
that West Charlotte High School.
Put the West Charlotte razzle-dazzle on him. And the rest, as they say, is history.
For the kids and even the parents, right? Because I was just having a conversation with my parents over the weekend, and I said, man, I remember, the dream was going to college, which nothing's wrong with that. But outside of that, it was nothing much more to that as far as the roadmap to success. This paints a different blueprint for the kids. So how exciting is this for the parents and the students?
It's exciting for everybody, particularly because one of our district initiatives is for all students to be enrolled, enlisted, or employed when they graduate. So this really aligns with that notion of enrolled, enlisted, employed, giving each opportunity equal weight. So the way that this will be set up, we will have a cohort of scholars that will begin every year as ninth graders. And we will work with the Iovine and Young staff to embed. They have a curriculum that we are able to embed with our current curriculum within our social science, like our social studies and our humanities and those courses. And so they marry very well. And it's really just designed to help build skills, creative thinking, innovative thinking, collaborative works and thinkings and projects and that sort of thing. And so they get that foundational skill through their regular curriculum in 9th and 10th grade. And then because we are a school that has a lot of career pathways, that also allowed for it to marry very well with our current programming. So from the 11th and 12th grade, then they will branch off somewhat into their desired areas of interest, and the program is going to help us provide opportunities for them to develop some sort of program or business or what have you, and then they will provide them with some seed money to like get it up and going, and some folks to come in and help them develop it and do business planning and that sort of thing. So it's very exciting. And the most exciting thing about it is it's really a program that's open to anyone. We can run it through our current curriculum, but it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be the IB kid, or you don't have to be the CTE,
I was just about to ask that.
a definitive pathway type of kid. It's really open, and that's the point of it, to give open opportunity for all kids who may be interested and have, who it aligns with what their future goals may be.
So not really a sign-up sheet for it. It kind of, again.
Well, there's an application.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I have to ask.
Yeah, we're gonna. So there is an application. So we will push out our application once we have our incoming ninth grade list finalized, because it's still that registration season and that sort of thing. So once we have that list finalized, we're actually going to push. We have a Rising Lion Night, which is our incoming freshmen at the end of April, and so that is when we will introduce it to those folks and push the application out. And then we have some criteria that we've already established with the IYEG folks, and then we will select our first cohort, and it's on and popping.
The preparation, is there a little bit of sweat going down your forehead right now? Like, all right, we got to make sure everything is solid. Like, the preparation it'll be here before you know it. So what has that been like?
Yeah, there's a lot of prep work, but we always have so many programs and offerings and things happening at West Charlotte. Like, we are the building of don't say no if it's going to be something that's good for kids. So this is not new to us. We're used to, and now it is on a larger scale because it's a little bit more outward facing, if you will. But we're just running it. We're just doing what we do and just making sure we have all T's crossed, I's dotted. I mean, it is the first year, and they have told us that no one is expecting it to be perfect. We have to find our stride. They have partnered us with a sister school in Atlanta that we're going to be, they're going to be helping to kind of mentor us, if you will, because they have said that they are probably the closest to our school setting demographics and how we function as a district and all of that. So we do have that support, and so we're more excited. We're not worried. We're excited.
I'm excited for you. And look, there's a lot of pride when you go to West Charlotte, or you bump into somebody who went to West Charlotte High School. I'm like, man, y'all got a lot of pride. I love to see it though, and the school is deserving. I mean, and just to think back to your story, it was an email where you were like, maybe. I mean, do you think back about that initial email? Like,
it's funny because we went back and found the initial email and like our dialogue back and forth to each other, and we get tickled thinking like we were thinking, are they deserving of our reply? Because at the time we did not know that it was on such a large scale.
Yeah.
We didn't know what they had to offer. We didn't know that they were going to bring all these opportunities. So I said, if we hadn't responded to that email, the joke would have been on us.
See, now we need Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine to come to West Charlotte. I feel it starts here, right?
We're pushing.
Dr. Dre, Jimmy Iovine, if you hear me now, come to West Charlotte High School, pop up on them, or you can plan a trip, whatever. My last question before I get you out of here, you've been so gracious with your time. What do you see when you see your students? What do you see yourself in your students? What do you see?
To be quite honest, I don't really see myself in my scholars in the way that a lot of people think, because when I was their age, I came up in a more regimented, directed environment, and this is what we're doing here, and then we're gonna go here, we're gonna go to college, you're gonna put on this Chop Wheel t-shirt, you're gonna go over there and just say go Tar Heels and all that. And so, but these kids, like, they don't allow anybody to box them in. They are very strong, they're very vocal, they're very open to new ideas and to the world, and it just amazes me because if you think about it, some of them are 14, 15 years old, and just to see the way that they don't allow for anything to stop them from whatever it is that they feel like they deserve or they want. I don't see myself in them from that age, and I really think think that they are amazing, wonderful. I mean, I love them so much. They're funny. They're just everything. They really are.
They're fearless. These kids are fearless in the best way, right?
That's absolutely right.
Again, it's one of my nephew is 15. He'll be 16 in August, and just talking to him, he's like, man, he has so much confidence. He's very sure of himself. He's not afraid to try new things.
That's
and I'm
right.
like, I wasn't that guy.
That's right.
And I feel like this program is kind of meant for this generation.
It is.
Yeah.
It's definitely meant for this generation. The innovation component of it, the collaborative component of it, they have been raised in an environment where they have constant communication, interaction with each other. And so whereas prior generations may not have been as open to communicating, I mean, let me just say this. It's a different level of communication. We actually communicated, like we talked and, you interacted with folks in that kind of way. But they don't feel as though, I'm speaking for the scholars that I interact with daily, I feel like they don't think that there's anybody that they would not feel that they would be deserving of a conversation or deserving of anything as it related to any sort of collaboration or conversation or interaction with anybody or anything.
Yeah. Oh man, great things happening there at West Charlotte High School, which is not far away from the station at all. It's not far away. We're practically neighbors. We're in West Charlotte right now.
We're very close. Yeah. Now you are neighbors with the CMS building right over here.
Yeah. I was about to say, we're right there.
CMS neighbors, but it didn't take me long at all to get over here. So.
Well, I appreciate you for stopping by. Of course.
Some scholars.
I was about to say, you gonna come back?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
We'll bring those kids and let them entertain.
We'll make it happen. Thank you, Principal Paula Cook, West Charlotte High School. The West Charlotte. I got to make sure I'm correct. The West Charlotte High School. Look forward to having you guys back, and good luck on the program coming up.
All right, folks, going to take another 2-minute break. We'll come back right after this. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to take an interview from 704 Unfiltered with Nick Sturdivant and go back and learn more about Chris Dennis. Let's go to this now.
Welcome back. This week on 704 Unfiltered, we got another special guest. I usually stand up for special guests, but I feel like sitting down today. I usually stand up, Jeb, but I'm sitting down. And we have a special guest. So he's a seasoned community leader, an advocate for affordable housing and community-driven commercial development, intending to empower communities with resources and information that encourage growth and upward mobility. For more than 20 years, He's been a community leader here in the Charlotte area. His resume is so long. I just want to list a couple of things. Founder of Community Dream Builders Incorporated, leads eFix Development Corps. Says he loves cameras. He might be on a TV screen near you. A reality show? Is this a reality show?
It looks Damon Johns. I'm excited about
Damon Johns. We have Chris Dennis on the show. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing so great. Always a blessing to be in the house and talking to creative people about community, which I always love. So.
Oh man, can we announce HB? You said okay. You said it's coming. It's coming. Okay. We'll chill on that. I'm not going to ask you about that. I'm not going to ask you about that. You're from Sumter, South Carolina?
Yeah, from a little small town called Sumter, outside of Columbia. Everybody knows Sumter, but then I'm actually from a town called Rembert. It's a little small town, so if you know it, it's got one stoplight.
Yeah, I got, I think, one Wendy's in Sumter.
We don't got no Wendy's this time.
I used to work in Florence, so I used to pass through Sumter to get to my brother's place in Somerville.
I lived in Florence for about 5 years. I worked at the GE medical plant right across from Magnolia Mall, I think it was. So
that mall still stands, man. You know they got that Chinese spot in the mall.
Oh, you been there too?
What? That Chinese spot in the mall where they put all the rice, all the noodles, everything. Like you could barely close the styrofoam
right there
plate.
Right there.
Your earliest memories, like growing up in South Carolina.
Wow, man. So my story is very unique, and I always tell people, life is always about a journey. Mm-hmm. So for me, when I think of my earliest memories, I always think back to my beginning. I was one of those kids that was born with a learning disability. Mm-hmm. They said I never learned past 7th grade, so they put me in a resource class, and for 6 years of my life, I spent in a single class staring at a wall trying to figure out how to think outside the box. And 3 words changed my life, and that was the words I believe.
All right, folks, that is our time here on WCNC Plus. We'll have an update for you on all things for the news on WCNC Charlotte at 11, including the Hornets game, which I do believe they're winning right now. We'll see you then.